Just start. One word, one sentence, one paragraph, one page. There's no wrong answer. No one's ever going to look at it. You don't even have to look at it again. Spelling doesn't matter. Grammar doesn't matter. There's no bad ideas. There's just you and your thoughts and the page, and it will result in truth and data for you to use in your life as a superpower for whatever you want it to do for you. Today, we're talking about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is journaling. I've been journaling since I was 14 years old. That means I've been journaling for 20 years, extreme consistency. So I feel like I have quite a bit to offer on this particular subject. These are all of my physical journals. I switched from physical to digital quite a while ago, so the vast majority of my writings and journaling are on the computer, unfortunately, because there's something so sweet and special about flipping through your old journals, which I did this morning a bit before I started making the video. I want to talk about why you should journal, what you can gain from it in terms of your reading, what you can gain from it in terms of your writing. But also, I want to jump outside of that and talk about what journaling can do for you in your life, your everyday existence. Journaling is a superpower, and I hope that by the end of this video, I will have convinced you of that in some small manner. The wonderful thing about journaling is you can't screw it up. There may be ways that are more efficient, there may be ways that get you more of what you're desiring, but any kind of journaling is better than not journaling at all, and you will gain something from journaling regardless of how you do it, how often you do it, or how good you are at it. There are not many things in the world that fit into that criteria. And so again, I really want to encourage you to just try, pick a date, and just dive in. I want to start with why. Wordsworth tells us to fill your paper with the breathings of your heart. That is a very poetic sense of what journaling is, and it's also one of the answers to why, to expose yourself. Now, the cool thing is you don't have to ever have anyone see your journals. You can make sure of it, whether you lock them in a safe like I did for a long period of my life, especially when I had roommates, where you secure them digitally in a file, etc. They are just for you. This is something I had to fix immediately in my thinking. There was a young part of my poetic heart that wanted to be studied, that wanted to be this famous writer, and someday they would compile my journals from my youth and they would look through it and see the brilliance, etc., and focusing more on my penmanship and my thoughts being clear and things of this nature in the hope and expectation of being studied, which is so egotistical, but I think a lot of teenagers do this same kind of thing. Eventually, I learned that it's just for me, and that's the true power of it. So why should you journal? Let me just give you a laundry list of reasons and we'll dive into a few of them. Journaling can help you achieve goals, manage anxiety. It can make you grateful. It improves your writing. It improves your memory. It improves your well-being. It gives a record of your life. It can help you with decision making. It can help you become aware of patterns in your life so you can take charge. It's a wonderful tool of reflection. It strengthens self-discipline and routine. It boosts creativity and helps come up with new ideas. It allows you to track your progress. It helps you to brainstorm. And one of the biggest benefits is it helps you to retain this information and make it more accessible and usable. I get a question very often on the channel, which is, how do you remember all that you have read? And how do you apply what you have read? Because I talk about reading being a tool. Reading is a source of information. It is power. It is historical knowledge. It is perspective of lives unlived. It is tangible knowledge that you can go out into the real world and get better results or create change with, but it's only as good as your ability to A, remember it, and B, pull it out of the correct file at the right time for the right application. Journaling is that system. Journaling is why I remember so much of what I have read and why I can access it when I need it. Many of you have been so kind with the compliments about my ability to regurgitate information or pull a quote or the right kind of information at the right time as I'm describing something. And I promise you that the number one reason I may be better at that than some others is because of my vast amount of journaling. So let's start breaking a few of those down. If nothing else, if you're reading a book, take some notes. Just journal on the books that you read. It doesn't have to be extensive. You don't have to have this huge outline in every chapter. Here's the 5 things that I learned in my main takeaways. But if you're reading and you come across a quote or you come across an idea, just write that down. Not only by the physical act of writing it down has it made an imprint on you, has it made an impression on you, but you can refer back to it later and continue to recharge your life. So yes, you get a better sense of what you have read, you get a better memory of what you have read, and you are able to utilize it better in the future. So tip 1, just write down the things that stand out to you as you read a book and classify it in some way so you can easily get back to what that book was when you were reading it and include some of those details when you read it. Why did you choose to read this book? If you know the goal, first of all, and especially if you journal that goal and you state your intention, you're now reading under a certain lens within a certain framework. So you're already going to be trying to ingest the information better than picking up a book, sitting back in the chair, perusing. And that's fine too. And you can still have wonderful insights and epiphanies and all kinds of fantastical happenings can still occur in your life that way. But intention matters. And the simple practice of writing that intention or that stated goal and then filling out how it's going towards that goal and inserting the tidbits or quotes that you have absorbed thus far, you're already a better reader than you were yesterday that quickly. So again, I wanted to start off with how it affects readings, but journaling in general has all of those other benefits that we mentioned. I want to kind of go through them quickly. The first one that I had mentioned is it helps achieve your goals. Just by writing down your goals in general, yet alone journaling, you are literally study found 42% more likely to achieve that goal. That is what I mean when I say journaling is a superpower. You want to get better at something, you want to improve, you want to learn a new skill, you want to overcome a fear. Write it down. Write it down and look at it. Write it down multiple times. Write it down and track your progress. Write it down and then say what's in the way. Any of those things immediately make you more apt to complete that goal and overcome that challenge. It's a superpower, you guys. It's just ridiculous. Why would you not? I talked about its ability to help manage fear or anxiety. Most of what we fear or what makes us anxious, psychologically speaking, is the unknown. It's the hypothetical. It's the potential. And your journals become the proof that life has not yet defeated you. That problem was written down. It was a big deal. And now it's in the past. And it gives you the perspective that you can get through this. And it gives you the confidence to attack it instead of to run from it, to see it visually on a page, and then really to extrapolate that information, which this is something I'll talk about hopefully in this video yet. And it helps to do it digitally. That's one of the pros of digital, is to be able to put the data in front of you, to be able to utilize it. How many days did you feel this way? How many days did you feel this way? How long did it take between these seasons of life to overcome X, etc.? It really is amazing. You know what it is? Journaling is data, and data is power. So the more you journal, the more data you have, and the better you get at utilizing, reviewing the journals, creating systems that your journals can work for you, the more powerful that data becomes in your life. The next thing I mentioned was gratitude. Journaling makes you grateful. And I mentioned this a little bit in the last point, but you see your life turn out. You see the things you hoped for that came true. You record the things people have said to you. That's something I've always done. If someone paid me a compliment, if someone breathed a little bit of life into me and I wrote it down and I could go back to that, I developed a very strong sense of self. It was a healthy self-assurance that comes from reminding yourself of the good things that people have seen in you instead of constantly hearing that awful voice in your head. And then journaling that awful voice in your head can help you view it from a critical eye. When it's in your head, it's you, right? It's a part of you. It's your voice. When you write it down on paper, it's something you're reading and you can more accurately analyze that. Is that true about me? And then journal that. I remember doing this practice as well. If I had a negative thought that just wouldn't leave, if I had some intrusive thought, if I had some self-defeating thought and I wrote it down and then I wrote, is this true? It forces you to take an accurate look at that. Sometimes some of those things were true and I could see that that was something that needed worked on. And then I could write down that it's something I wanted to work on and I could talk about how I wanted to do it, what success would look like, give myself a time frame and start moving forward in that. And if all of this sounds too complicated for you or, oh my gosh, that's way more involved, again, it doesn't have to be all of this. I'm just talking about what can happen and how I personally have been able to utilize some of these things to better myself. But if all you did were write down the negative voices and write down the positive voices and compare the two and ask yourself which of these are going to be more beneficial for you to lean into and look for the truth in each of these, you're going to understand yourself better and you're going to separate the insane attack and barrage of voices and doubt and negativity that our minds are just inundated with objective truth. And the next one that I think will really apply to a lot of people watching this particular video is that it can help improve your writing. Now, I am no published author. I think that my writing, though, has improved throughout the course of my life greatly, and I attribute it in part to journaling and in part to writing in and of itself. But let me explain. Writing in general is a skill, not necessarily something you're blessed with. Journaling, especially journaling about your writing, is the fine critique on writing that I think can take you to the next level incrementally. One thing you're going to see consistently throughout my advice on journaling is to write down exactly what it is you want the journal to do for you. And this isn't some kind of the secret, imagine it, believe it, see it, achieve it kind of a deal. It is simply that there is something that happens, and I don't want to take the time to get into all the psychology and the neuroscience behind the power of writing something down, resuscitating it, speaking it over and over, visualizing it, seeing it instead of just hearing it in your own head, etc. But there is a world of research around why all of that is so powerful. It is just simple psychology. So if you want to get better at writing, write that down. I want to get better at writing. I looked over a page from this tonight, and here are the questions I have about it. Here are the sentences I want to find a way to write better. Here is the idea I was trying to get to in 3 sentences. I'm going to write it out in 8. Here's how I wrote about it last year, and here's how I wrote about it today. And the biggest difference I saw was this. That difference was exciting to me, and I want to see more of that. Name that difference. Isolate that. And the next time that you sit down to write something similar, you're going to have that little thing in the back of your head. You're going to have a new tool. You've learned this particular skill, and you're going to apply it to the next application. Superpower. But if nothing else, journaling is just an extension of your writing, and it will continue to make you better in and of itself without any of the forethought or insight. A quick one that I mentioned is that it boosts your memory. Writing about something is another way of committing it to memory. If you've ever tried to memorize a speech or a poem or something like that, one of the best tools you can do is to write it out in its entirety. The second tip that people will give you in memorizing something is to teach it to somebody else, because it makes you understand it from all angles. And when you understand the greater concept of something, it's easier to get down to the smaller details of it. Journaling does both of those. It allows the repetition. You're writing down that quote that you like. So you read it, you thought about it, you're writing it down. All of this is helping you retain it. But now you're going to write why you liked that quote, why you think that quote is going to be useful in the future. What other quote do you know that's like that quote? Why did that quote work in this book? How did it align with your goal of what you wanted to get out of the book? Why did it stand out to you? That's the angles and perspectives around the thing itself. And as you journal about those angles and perspectives, what it does is it just builds this little staircase to the thing itself, the quote itself, the theme, the new idea that you had, the new skill or piece of understanding or perspective that you gained. You've elevated it with importance. Your brain wants to hold on to what's important. You're building the base of importance around it just by journaling about it. So of course it's going to improve your memory. By the way, I didn't cover it, but there are studies that show that it boosts your mental health and your physical health, that being journaling. I think that's pretty phenomenal. We touch on this quickly, but 2 more that I had in there were noticing patterns and also just reflecting in general. Now, I did a real Ben Franklin style of journaling when I first started off, and that was to journal at the end of the day, have a bigger journaling segment at the end of the week, an even larger one at the end of the month, and then kind of a quarterly or yearly wrap up. And that particular style can really stretch out some of your reflections on your life and the patterns that you are seeing. Is this something that I dealt with? It was just a bad day. Is this a common recurrence on a weekly basis? Am I seeing this month over month? Oh my gosh, has this been going on for years? There are times that I've looked back at my journals, and I did it this morning. Let me give you a live example. This is from 2005. So I was 16 or 17 when I wrote this, and this is book 3 of the Book of Daily Thought. So at the end of each day, I wrote down just one thing. That's how this particular journal worked. They all had their differences. And I'll just read you my awful 16-year-old thought. It says, I am frustrated. Where has depth gone? Where has contemplation and meditation gone? Why is life composed of nothing more than the fluctuations of annoying emotions? I have grown tired of this fight. So we're a little emo, whatever. But my point is, this is probably, and I'm using it as an example, not necessarily like a true example, but if I continue to see themes as I looked back through 2006, 2008, and I still have this frustration, there's still just this dull sense and aching, that would be a pattern that is easily recognized. And we can attribute that to young age, we can attribute to a lack of opportunity, etc. But at least I can identify a problem and I can make changes on that problem. If you never write it down, if you never address it, if you can't see these patterns of what's affecting you, you can't make change. Awareness is step 1. And there are ways to get awareness, meditation and reflection, etc. But how much more powerful are your meditations and your reflections if you have data? Again, the 2 words I'm going to use over and over are data and superpower, because that is what you get from journaling. I can't tell you how many epiphanies or interesting concepts or a topic for something I wanted to write have come from just journaling, just writing, whether it's a daily thought, whether it's a specific meditation, whether it's an overcoming fear, whether it's a dream journal, whether it's a goals journal, whatever, because of the influx of all of the data and seeing what you wrote yesterday and thinking about what you're going to do next week week and coming back on the book that you just got done going through, or recounting an important conversation you just had with someone. And then all of a sudden, ding, 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 everything lined up and you get that thought that excites you, that makes your heart beat faster. I've had thoughts about what am I doing in terms of the job or where I'm living or why I'm still hanging out with that person or why I haven't pursued that girl or whatever the case is. And without journaling, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened necessarily, but I think that I would have had a much lower chance of really understanding what I was looking for, what I wanted, why it was important. Maybe it seems like a nerdy way to approach your life, but the proof is in the pudding for me, at least anecdotally. It's not journaling, right? It's not just writing words in a book. It's having a method. It's having a process. It's developing a skill and an ability to know yourself, which is one of the last ones that I wanted to enter into on why you should journal. At the end of the day, you get to know who you are, and that is a very complicated thing. I promise you, if you can just try to remove the ego, remove the expectation of anyone else ever seeing this ever, relinquish you from having to read this again. Okay, I might never read this again because it's going to be so embarrassing or so bad or whatever, but I'm going to write it down one time. How do I feel about X? What do I want for myself in 5 years? What is the most important value that I have? Whatever big question you want to ask yourself, if you sit down and you can give yourself all of those caveats so that you can actually be honest, really, really, really examine your inner soul, heart, spirit, whatever you want to call it, and get it out on paper, you will be amazed. I promise. If you are willing to let open the floodgates of this psyche that is so complex in nature, you can start to break down some of that complexity into usable bite-sized chunks of personality and understand yourself. It helps with your confidence. It helps with your discipline, your regulation, your emotion, your well-being, all the way around. Journaling allows you to discover who you are. So again, this represents a very small chunk of my actual journaling. I moved on to digital journaling pretty quickly, but the different kinds of journaling that I've done at large would be the daily thought one is one of my favorites. I've kept that up for 20 years. The end of every day, you get to write one sentence. What would you write? I have a journal for just quotes. Anytime I hear a quote, it goes in the quote journal. I have a book on goals. So every time I have a goal, a new goal, I check in on an old goal. I want to reignite a goal. I want to get better at something. I want to get faster at something. I want to learn this. It goes in the goal journal. I know when I put that goal down of what I want to accomplish, I'm going to get there because it will become more important to me once I write it down. I will be specific about it and I can look back and I can see all of the times and the ebbs and flows that I've had and the other times that I've conquered this and know that I can do it. Superpower. I've had poetry journals and idea journals where I just, if there's a good title of something or there's 2 good lines or something of that nature, they go in there and then I can reference that when I'm writing later and say, oh, I really like this. I want to incorporate it. But then you don't have to think of the whole thing. You don't have to move yourself through the whole concept. Hey, I just like this line. I like the way this went together. I do have my own idea journal. That's more for whether it's business or YouTube. And, it's really changed throughout the years. It's more of a creative journal. And I'd encourage you to be really specific. At the beginning of each one of these journals, I have a paragraph on the front left cover. This is a journal of X. This is a dream journal. This journal is not meant to be a goals journal. This is a journal to help me think big. What do I want in general? What is the scary thing I would be afraid to tell people I'm trying to accomplish? It allows me to be free, to dream bigger. And eventually I can break that down into smaller goals and achieve some of those dreams. But if I just did goals and I just wanted to see a direct path to getting there, I would miss out on some of these bigger ideas. I have the typical standard journal you would think of where you can kind of at the end of the day or week, and I've gone through different progressions in my life, write, and I've given myself different parameters. Do a full page, do it on this topic. So for the entire month of April, I want to focus on fear. And over the course of a month with just one word, day 17, you have nothing new to say. And so you attack it from a new way. Maybe fear is good. I'm going to write, here's what's good about fear. And I'm getting another side of the coin, another perspective, another connotation that otherwise would not have happened. And that is a superpower. You guessed it. Business journals, love journals, right? Journals where I write down, like I've written a lot of letters to my wife, etc. And I always take the time to write a physical copy in my journal so I can just kind of see the evolution of that. I have journals where I rewrite things that people have said to me, kind of a positive affirmation journal. If someone's written me a letter, taken the time to send me an email or said something to me in person, these positive affirmations that are hyper specific, they're about me, that real people said, and here's when they said them and here's why they said them. And that is really, really powerful. I haven't said this yet. It helps you carefully make your way towards truth. It's a narrowing in on reality. It is a sharpening of our vision and the way we think about things. And I think that is so awesome. So I'm sure I've missed some things. There's definitely some other journaling techniques and ideas that I've gone after in the past. But the point is, whether you go absolutely ham like I have, or you keep it really simple, which is how I would encourage you to start. If you take on too much, it's going to burn you out. I've had times in my life where it's very simple journaling. At the end of each day, I'm just writing something. If that was your only goal, I'm just going to write something. Maybe it's one word, maybe it's 15 sheets. It doesn't matter. Write something. So the last thing that I want to do to end the video is talk about some of the differences between physical and digital. Physical has a real sense of accomplishment. I'm going to write this. There's the blank page. Oh, I'm turning the page. Oh, wow, I'm writing 2 pages tonight. There's something about holding it in your hands. There's something about the aesthetic of it, just sitting there writing. There's something very personal, but a lot of that is feeling. So I think it's very similar in nature to the debate between reading a physical book and reading like a Kindle or an e-reader or something of that nature. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as much as one might say it does. I think there might be something powerful about physically writing something down. I think that from a psychological factor of exercising and seeing that ink come out, but that's just anecdotal and theoretical. I have nothing to back that up with. I think that if you like seeing things build up, if you're a collector like I am, you've seen the library, then there is something powerful and special. And if that's what encourages you to do it, then do that. I think that's going to be the number one answer. Which one is going to be more likely for you to consistently journal? Digital has its pros, probably a lot more pros. Again, you don't have to worry about bad penmanship. You don't have to worry about having the right journal or having to go buy a new one or blah, 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 blah. It's always going to be there. You can probably type faster. This is interesting. I wanted to talk about this. Physically writing is a slow, methodical process. And I think, and again, it's just a guess, that having to go word by word so slowly can force you to be more discerning with your words. That's going to be good and bad. It's going to help you be more efficient with your writing and more concise in learning how to think. Thinking is also a skill, just like writing. And so for that, I think that the slowing down is really good. I still utilize both to an extent. I'm predominantly digital because it is faster. It's easier to file. It's easier to reference by year, by category, etc. And for all of those reasons, it's going to be better for me. Maybe there's not as much to say there as I thought. I think it's going to be personal preference, but I'd encourage you this. Let's end with this. There is something so powerful about a blank page, a blank document, and you. That, I think, is where the beauty and the power come in. What are you going to put there? And just start. One word, one sentence, one paragraph, one page. There's no wrong answer. No one's ever going to look at it. You don't even have to look at it again. Spelling doesn't matter. Grammar doesn't matter. There's no bad ideas. There's just you and your thoughts and the page, and it will result in truth and data for you to use in your life as a superpower for whatever you want it to do for you. Just journal.
I'd like to personally thank my top tiers of support. My Iconoclast and Boris GVI, Jacob, Jason, Joe, Kitboga, Perry, Rokkit, Shawn, and StrongRex. My Humanist heroes, Imposter, James, Jarrod, and Kristi. My Atheist advocates, Caleb, Jeff, Jeffrey, JimothyJones, Mrs. Webb, Paul, Shan, Sparky, Thronus, and Todd J, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of the channel or you just enjoy its content, please consider joining these fine people.